So Wes, here we are once again, and we're going to be going down that security rabbit hole one more time. You think you're ready to see where this adventure is going to take us this week?
Well, I'm a little scared. Security can be a daunting field, Elle, but I know you're going to help me out.
Yeah, I've been posting a lot lately about studying for my Security Plus and the different security conferences that I've been going to. And I keep getting a lot of DMs asking me if I'm going to be leaving, Jupiter Broadcasting and heading in that direction. So I wanted to, let everybody know I'm not going anywhere. I just have the blessing of being able to kind of play with my passion and discover new things. But the next question that I'm getting all of the time is, how do I do the same thing, Elle? How do I get into security? How do I transition from being an admin or, working as a developer to working in the security field? And it so happens that I, once again, have a friend who can maybe shed some light on how that can happen. You see, my friend Lou has recently transitioned to working as a security analyst at Rackspace. So I invited him here today to tell us a little bit about his journey and how he got where he is now. Lou, thanks so much for joining us today.
And thank you for having me.
Would you mind telling everybody a little bit about what a security analyst is? What is it that you do on your day-to-day?
Well, that's a great question. Security analyst is a pretty generic term throughout the industry. It can mean a lot of different things at a lot of different companies. In my day-to-day, I spend a good chunk of my time handling instant escalations and responding to security alerts.
This is your now, but this isn't the job that you started out in the tech world with. How did you, get started in the tech field?
So I started in the tech field back in 2011. When I was in college, I found an internship, and I started working as a quality assurance engineer at a tech startup that built mobile applications for focusing around the text-to-speech technology.
I guess I'm missing a bridge. How did you go from, hey, this is what I'm doing, to I should work as a security analyst? Like, no big deal.
Sure, yeah. Well, in the last 8 years, I guess, I've changed jobs a couple of times, and each time moved closer to systems administration up until 2015, when I got a job at a tech company that did managed hosting and managed AWS and managed Azure. And if you were willing to pay them money, they would manage your refrigerator for you.
I think I've worked at that company.
Well, so that was a company called DataPipe, headquartered in New Jersey. And that's where I lived for my whole life up until this past February. I applied to a job at Rackspace as a security analyst, and I seemed to impress enough people in the interview process that I moved down here 1,800 miles or so to San Antonio, and have been working in the Rackspace Cybersecurity Operations Center since February.
It always amazes me when I hear web admins or just system admins ask me, well, how do I get started in security? Because I feel that a lot of what we did as admins was security work. We worked with firewall configurations. We worked with applications and trying to make sure, we maybe didn't try to make sure that they weren't compromised, but we would definitely see indicators if they were. Did you find the transition to be kind of simple because of that? Or am I oversimplifying, the transition?
I think you're spot on. That is definitely a very large portion of what a good sysadmin is doing. When they're working on a server and they notice, hey, this is weird. There's, bash running as a child of the web server. That's not normal. That sort of security mindset in the systems administration work is what makes it so easy, I think, to transition over. So there's definitely other things in addition to, how does this system work that is important in the day-to-day work of a security analyst, but it's a big chunk of it.
Are there things you wish you knew coming into the security field that you hadn't really encountered before in your past work?
Yeah, I'll be totally honest, and I feel like it's sacrilegious to say this here, but, I wish I had not totally sworn off Windows so much for so long.
Why is that? Do you just encounter a lot of it in your work now?
Yeah, so in my work, the Cybersecurity Operations Center at Rackspace kind of straddles a couple lines. In addition to protecting the company internally and, doing phishing response and all of our internal servers and every user's endpoint, we offer ourselves as a security operations center as a service to customers that are looking for this sort of security service. And we don't get to choose, how they're running their applications and their services. It's almost a 50-50 split between various Linux flavors and various ages of Windows. And there's some easy stuff to remember. Scheduled tasks in Windows are a lot like cron jobs. But how things hook into the Windows kernel and how you would find that is a lot different than on Linux. And that was really where I stumbled and struggled a little getting started in security.
So if you have some of these folks who are perhaps working in quality assurance, or maybe somebody who's a junior sysad who's going, I want to take that next step, and these are the people that are reaching out to me, what advice would you give them?
I think the best part about security, and if you're already asking yourself if security might be right for you, you might already be on the right track, is that there's so much learning to be done. It's kind of a marketing buzzword, but the phrase ever-changing threat landscape is something that, we hear it over and over and over. And part of that is because it's true. Every day we get a new report from FireEye or the Department of Homeland Security or CrowdStrike or one of these other security companies, or we're finding these things ourselves about new ways that attackers are looking to compromise your environment. I just realized that barely answered the question.
No, you know what? It's fair because it's a really complicated question. And I'm just sitting here listening to you and just picking up on key terms. One of the things that I did, or I'm doing right now, is getting my Security Plus. And it's not so much that I want the cert, it's that I feel that I have to learn the language of security to be able to understand what people are talking about.
There's definitely some degree of that, yeah. And I mean, we spoke a little yesterday about the Security Plus. I'm going to school in my off time, and one of the classes I need to get the Security Plus certification. And I work in security. I should be able to take this no problem, right? So I took the practice test, and I did pretty well. But there were certain questions where they referred to a packet capture device running something like Snort as a protocol analyzer, which is certainly one way to describe that, but is not a normal term I would use to describe that technology. So there's definitely a lot to learn. The terminology seems to be different no matter what. Everyone has their own words for certain things. If you go take a SANS class, you're going to hear something phrased a little bit different than what CompTIA is going to teach you. And that's going to be, a little bit different than eLearn Security, which is going to be a little bit different than maybe what the instructor at Linux Academy is saying.
Makes me think of the networking field where different vendors have different names for the exact same thing.
Yes, exactly. The difference between a port channel in HP ProCurve switching and Cisco Catalyst switching is really big, but it's the same word.
Wes, the more that we talk to people in security, the more that I realize that every time we ask a question and they say, I'm studying, I'm currently learning, I'm enrolled in.
Yeah.
It's a really inquisitive mind.
I suppose you probably need that, right? There's always new angles of attack in the security field.
Yeah, well, so that's definitely part of it. And that's, one of the things that has motivated me to keep going. But earlier when I mentioned my very first internship in 2011, I never actually finished that college degree. I stopped and started a couple of times, but between having to work to afford school and then, not having the time for school because I was working, I, in the last year and a half have went back and I transferred all of my credits and went back to school at this point, really just so that I can say I've finished a bachelor's degree, even though, I've got a bachelor's degree and a half worth of classes I've attended.
Lou, when we were at Texas Cyber Summit, I think we both attended Allie's talk that was from, dropout to engineer. And the more that I talk to people in the security field, I find that it is a very, I don't want to say forgiving field, but it's a field that is very accepting of different backgrounds. And I think that a lot of people's life experiences is what kind of drives them to go into security. It's that inquisitive mind, that inability to sit still, not being able to focus on one thing seems to be an asset in the security field more than anywhere else.
There's definitely an element of truth there. When it comes time to it, you do have to be able to sit down and focus on a certain thing, at least for a little while. But yeah, my colleagues, some of them come from a Linux sysad background, some come from a Windows admin background, some used to work on firewalls and switches. I think the drive to learn and that inquisitiveness, that always wanting to learn more, is the thing that all of us have in common and is what we really look for when we're looking for new people to add to the team.
I know that people are going to probably want to reach out and ask you a little bit more about, your story, how you got started, maybe ask your advice. What's the best way for them to be able to reach you?
You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter DMs are wide open. It's at LJSTELLA. That's Lima, Juliet, Sierra, Tango, Echo, Lima, Alpha. And just, send me a message. I try to get back to anyone that sends me a message. It might take me a day or two. Work is pretty crazy, but that would be where to find me.
All right, Wes. Well, I guess you and I need to be going ourselves and maybe take some time to learn that military alphabet.
It's about time that we do. If others are curious, we'll, of course, have links to the stuff we talked about over at extras.show.